In the world buzzing with loud noises and flashing screens, let's journey somewhere different. Let's rediscover the magic of traditional storytelling through the simple joy of reading stories aloud. Welcome to the WorldStoryMind, where stories come alive in your mind. Buonasera, my friends. So today we are going to a country that borders France, Switzerland, Austria, and Slovenia. Can you guess it? It also is very famous for pizza and pasta. Okay, we are going to the magnificent, fascinating Italy. We will also be uncovering the legend of La Befana, a cherished mythological figure that is deeply rooted in the culture of Italy. Today's story includes La Befana, a lost child, a mystical water fairy, and the evil wizard. But before we meet these magical characters, I want to take you to the fascinating world of ancient Italy, to the Roman era. Rome, a time when this land was the beating heart of one of history's greatest empires. Rome wasn't just the capital of Italy, it was the center of the ancient world. The city dazzled with architectural wonders like the Colosseum, or stadium as we know it, where gladiators clashed in epic battles, and the rallies, a vibrant hub of politics and commerce. Commerce is basically where you buy and sell goods, especially in large quantities. Did you know that the Romans were super creative? They invented cool things like the fountains that brought fresh waters right to the city and built amazing roads that connected the whole empire. The Roman Empire was like a big mix of people and cultures from all over. As it grew, folks from places like Greece, Egypt, and even far off Britain brought their traditions, food, and languages. This made the city of Rome feel like a huge, exciting melting pot. In the markets, you could find all sorts of awesome things like spices from the East, shiny silks from China, and a lot of those other cool stuff from around the Mediterranean. Life in Rome had its own ups and downs. Rich people lived in big fancy houses with colorful mosaics on the floor and great paintings. And they ate some wild stuff like flamingo and dormice. Yes, they ate mice and it was their delicacy. But regular Romans lived in simpler apartments called the insulae, and they loved hanging out at the public baths. The baths just weren't for washing or taking showers or baths. They were places to relax, exercise, play games, and even get a massage. It was a social place where people got together to hang out. Rome was also famous for its farming, especially olives, grapes, and grains, which helped keep the economy strong. And guess what? Trade was huge. Romans used roads and busy ports like Ostia to trade with people all over the empire. Education was a big deal too. Boys in Rome learned all sorts of things like how to speak well, read, and think about important ideas. This helped them get ready for politics or the military. Romans were also incredible builders. They invented the concrete, used it to create huge, amazing buildings like the Pantheon that still stands today. The Romans worshipped tons of gods and goddesses, with Jupiter being on the top. But over time, more and more people started following Christianity, which changed the way Romans thought about religion. This rich fabric of culture and tradition has set the stage for countless legends and stories. Italy is a land full of stories, old stories, magical stories, stories that have been told for hundreds and hundreds of years. Fast forward to chilly evening in January. In modern Italy, another story is coming to life. The streets are quiet, but inside warm homes, children are giggling with excitement as they carefully hang their stockings by the fire. But guess what? They're not waiting on Santa Claus. No. Tonight they're waiting for someone very special, someone who rides a broomstick instead of a sleigh. Her name is La Befana, and she's not your usual Christmas visitor. She's a kind but mysterious older woman with a big patchwork shawl and sprinkle of magic. So who is La Befana? Imagine a little Italian village on the night before Epiphany, also called the Little Christmas. This is a special day in Christian tradition, celebrating when the three wise men visited baby Jesus. But in Italy, the night before Epiphany belongs to La Befana. She flies from house to house on her broomstick, visiting sleeping children. If they've been good, she fills their stockings with delicious sweets. But if they've been a little naughty, well, they might find a lump of coal instead. Don't worry, it's usually a candy coal. But where did La Befana come from? And why does she bring gifts on this special night? Some say her story began a very long time ago, even before Christmas existed. Long ago, Romans celebrated Saturnalia, a joyful festival in December with feasts, laughter, and gift-giving. Kind of like an early Christmas. Maybe, just maybe, La Befana's magic comes from those ancient times, blending old traditions with new ones. But there's one thing we know for sure. La Befana's story is full of warmth, kindness, and just a little bit of mischief. So let's uncover the tale of Italy's beloved Christmas witch and see how her legend still brings joy to children today. A long time ago, in a quiet little village in Italy, there lived an old woman named Befana. She spent her days sweeping her house until it was sparkling clean, and she liked being alone. One cold winter night, something special happened. Three wise men knocked on her door. They were following a bright star and searching for the newborn king. "Come with us," they said. "We're bringing gifts for the baby." But Befana shook her head. "Oh no, I can't go. My house is a mess, and what would a simple old woman like me bring to a king?" So the wise men went on their way. That night, Befana couldn't sleep. What if that child really was special? What if he needed her? So before the sun rose, she grabbed her broom, filled a sack with little gifts, and hurried after them. But it was too late. The wise men were gone, and she never found the baby. And so, La Befana still searches for him to this day. Every year, on the night of January 5th, she flies across the sky on her broomstick, visiting sleeping children. She leaves sweets for good ones and little pieces of coal, sometimes candy coal, for the ones who have been a little naughty. People say she also watches over lost children and those who need a little extra love and care. La Befana's story is full of kindness, a little bit of magic, and a lot of heart. But did you know that long ago, during the time of Roman Empire, there was another tale? One about the lost child. Let's journey back in time and uncover another mystery from the past. Now close your eyes and imagine a time long, long ago when mighty emperors ruled over vast lands, and stones of magic and adventure whispered through the streets like evening wind. This was the time of the great Roman Empire during the rule of Emperor Augustus. The land stretched as far as the eyes could see, from towering mountains to endless deserts, from grand cities to tiny villages tucked between rolling green hills. But even in such a mighty empire, life was not always very kind. Families struggled, travelers roamed in search of safety, and deep within the bustling world, a little girl named Livia was about to embark on an adventure filled with mystery, magic, and fate. Her story, woven with kindness and destiny, begins in the crowded street of Jerusalem, where fate would soon separate her from everything she knew and lead her towards an encounter with magic, a water fairy, and even an evil wizard. So now, let's step back in time. Let's follow Livia into the bustling heart of Jerusalem, where the lines between history and legend begin to blur. Livia and her family lived in a small Judean village, nestled in the hills beneath the sky, painted with golden sunrises and deep blue twilights. But life under Roman rule was very hard. The Roman governor was cruel, and the heavy taxes made it difficult for family to survive. One day, Livia's father decided they must leave this village and travel to Bethlehem. He had heard whispers that there might be work, safety, and hope. And so, the family packed their very few belongings that they had and joined the many travelers heading towards the city. The road to Bethlehem was long and crowded with people from all walks of life. Some were merchants leading donkeys laden with colorful goods, their voices loud as they bargained and traded. Others were refugees, tired and weary, searching for a place to call home. Roman soldiers patrolled the roads, their armor shining in the sunlight, their watchful eyes scanning through the crowds. Livia clung to her mother's hand as they entered the great city of Jerusalem, its street alive with noise, scents, and movement. The marketplace was unlike anything Livia had ever seen. It was a maze of narrow streets, each filled with dazzling sights and unfamiliar sounds. Vendors shouted from their stalls, waving brightly woven fabrics and glittering trinkets. The air smelled of roasted almonds, honey-soaked dates, and warm bread, mingling with the salty scent of the sea carried by the wind. A musician played a lively tune on a reed flute, while a magician performed tricks, making things disappear with a flick of his wrist. Livia's wide eyes sparkled with excitement. But suddenly, a commotion. A caravan of traders pushed through the narrow street, their donkeys braying and cart creaking under the weight of heavy sacks. The crowd surged forward, people stepped aside to make way for the caravan. And in that single moment, Livia's mother hand slipped from her grasp. The world spun around her. The sea of people closed in. The sounds of the market became a blur, and fear wrapped around her like a dark cloak. "Mother!" Livia called, her voice swallowed by the noise. "Father!" She twisted and turned, her small hands reaching for something, anything familiar. But all she saw was strangers' faces, all moving, pushing, and stepping around her as if she was invisible. She tried to force her way through, but the people were too many, their hurried footsteps trampling the dusty ground. Roman soldiers marched past her, their heavy sandals clanking against the stone. A merchant laughed loudly as he haggled over a bronze cup. No one saw the little girl, standing frozen in the middle of the chaos. Her heart pounded like a drum of war. She was alone. Tears burned her eyes, but she blinked them away. She had to find her parents. She turned down a narrow alleyway, hoping it would lead her back to the market. But the alley was darker than she expected. Tall stone buildings loomed over her, their windows like watchful eyes. Cold wind whispered through the cracks, rustling the dried leaves across the cobblestone path. Livia took a deep breath and walked forward, her footsteps echoing in the eerie silence. She hurried faster, then faster still, until her foot suddenly slipped. The ground beneath her vanished as she stumbled forward, tumbling down the hidden slope that led to a narrow, winding path. She landed with a soft thud, her hands scraping against the damp stone. The air was very different. It was cooler, mistier, almost enchanted. Livia stood up, dusted herself off, and looked around. That's when she heard it, a gentle, flowing sound like a song being sung by the earth itself. She turned a corner and gasped. Before her lay the Jordan River, its waters shimmering under the fading light of the setting sun. The surface rippled as if whispering secrets only the river knew. But then, crack! A loud noise echoed behind her. She took a step back. Her foot touched the river's edge. The ground beneath her was slick with moisture. And then, splash! Livia tumbled into the river, the icy water wrapping around her like 1,000 grasping hands. The current was strong, too strong. It pulled her under, spinning her around, carrying her away from the bustling city, away from the people, away from everything she knew. She gasped for air, struggling against the rushing water. The sky was now a deep velvet blue, the first stars beginning to twinkle. The river seemed to whisper her name as it carried her into the unknown. But what Livia did not know was this: her journey was just beginning. For the river was not an ordinary river. It had secrets of its own, and soon she would meet beings from the world beyond imagination. A water fairy, a kind-hearted witch, and a dark sorcerer who watched from the shadows. Her adventure was just unfolding. Livia tumbled to the rushing river, the icy water pulling her away from everything she knew. She kicked and she thrashed, her tiny voice lost in the roaring waves. "Mother! Father!" she cried, but the river did not listen. The cold wrapped around her like a creeping shadow. Her arms ached. Her breath was short, just as her strength faded. A voice as soft as a lullaby drifted through the water. "Do not be afraid, little one." The words were like a warm embrace. Livia blinked against the stinging water and gasped. Before her, a shimmering figure floated gracefully in the waves. She had silver hair that danced like moonlight on the water, and her eyes glowed like stars in the winter's night. Her presence was soothing, like the hush of waves against the shore. Who are you?" Livia whispered, her voice small and trembling. The figure smiled, her pearly skin glowing like the light of the moon. "I'm Marina, the sea fairy," her voice as soft as the ocean breeze. "These waters are my home, and I have watched over them for many, many years. You, little one, are not meant to be lost." Tears welled up in Livia's eyes. "I need my parents. I just want to go home." Narina's glowing arms wrapped around her gently, lifting her from the water. "We will find them. But first, you must rest. There is danger in this world, and I must keep you safe." Livia clung to the fairy as they glided through the water, the fear in her chest slowly melting into wonder. "Are you magic?" she asked, peering up at the fairy with wide eyes. Narina's soft laugh sparkled like a sunlight on water. "Yes, little one. But you too are more magical than you know, and that magic, your courage, will guide you." With a flick of her shimmering mermaid-like tail, Narina carried Livia through the waters with ease no human could match. They weaved through the currents, diving past coral forests swaying like enchanted trees. Schools of fish shimmering like tiny jewels, and glowing sea creatures lit up the dark, their colors pulsing like gentle fireflies. Livia watched in awe, her fear fading with every passing moment. The river carried them far beyond Jerusalem's edge, leading them to a land unlike any Livia had ever seen before. A place where the sea kissed golden shores and the air smelt of salt and wild flowers. Narina had carried Livia to a hidden shore where the sand sparkled like crushed pearls beneath a canopy of enchanted trees. A soft golden mist hung in the air, whispering secrets only the wind could understand. And there, waiting beneath the branches, stood a mysterious figure. She was wrapped in flowing robes, stitched with stars that twinkled like the night sky. Her kind eyes were old, full of wisdom and warmth. Livia's breath caught in her throat. "Who is she?" she asked in a hushed voice. Narina smiled. "She is Befana, the wanderer, the one who helps those who are lost." Befana stepped forward, her warm hands cupping Livia's face like a gentle grandmother. "Welcome, child," she said, her voice like the crackle of a cozy fire on a cold night. She draped a soft cloak over Livia's shoulder, woven with silver stars that glowed faintly in the moonlight. "You've been through so much, little one," she whispered kindly, "but you're safe now." Livia leaned into her touch, her heart finally slowing, her body warm for the first time since she had been lost. But far, far away, the dark wizard awakened. Deep in the tower of black stone, Hidden beyond mountains of spiky rocks, a shadowy figure looked into a swirling orb of mist and fire. His eyes gleamed like cold steel, his fingers, long and tipped, with black claws, traced the air around the glowing image of the child. A sea fairy dares to defy me. His voice rumbled like distant thunder. A lost child protected by magic? His name was Magnus, the Dark Wizard. His power was drawn from the darkness, from fear, from the innocent hearts of the lost, and the whispers of a child saved by mystical forces had reached his ears. He clenched his fist, his long black cloak swelling like storm clouds. I will have the child and their vitality. And with those words, the air around him crackled with dark magic. Something wicked had awakened. Something was coming for Livia. She was about to become part of a story greater than she had ever imagined. Back in the bustling marketplace, Livia's parents searched frantically, their hearts pounding with fear. Livia! Livia! Her mother's voice trembled as she called, her eyes darting through the sea of faces. She clutched her chest, her breath shallow, panic rising with every passing moment. Her father rushed from stall to stall, his voice urgent. Have you seen a little girl? Dark curls, a blue tunic? But the merchants only shook their heads. The travelers had no answers. No one had seen their child. The sun dipped behind the rooftops. Torches flickered to life, their flames casting long, dancing shadows across the street. The search party grew, stretching beyond the market and into the darkening hills. Word spread like ripples in pond. Strangers whispered among themselves. Some joined the search, their hearts touched by parents' desperation. Others spoke in hushed tones of thieves lurking in the night, of children vanishing without a trace. Rumors stirred like restless ghosts in evening air. But Livia's parents refused to let fear stop them. Then, an old fisherman, wrapped in a tattered cloak, stepped forward. His face was lined with age, his eyes filled with sorrow. I saw a child, he said, his voice rough like rolling waves. She fell into the water. The river. The current was strong. She may have been carried far downstream. Livia's mother let out a cry, her legs giving way beneath her. Her father caught her, his hands shaking but his spirit unbroken. His jaw tightened, his eyes burned with determination. Then we follow the river, he said, his voice steady like the tide. And so, under the starlit sky, with hope as their only guide, Livia's parents set out on their desperate journey to find their daughter, no matter how far the river had carried her. As Livia rested in La Befana's care, the air grew heavy with unease. Magnus, a dark wizard who hunted children to steal their vitality, had learned of Livia's presence. He was drawn to her light, her innocence and courage, which could fuel his sinister magic. Nerina, sensing the dark power encroaching, warned La Befana, he knows she's here. I can protect her in water, but on land, my strength fades. La Befana nodded gravely. We must act quickly. Magnus is cunning, but he can be defeated. Livia listened, her heart pounding. What can I do? She asked, her voice small but determined. La Befana smiled at her courage. Stay close to me, child. Your bravery will be your shield. As Magnus's dark shadow crept closer, Nerina called upon her magical sea friends, the glowing jellyfish, speedy dolphins, and wise old turtles. They shimmered like stars in the waters, creating a glowing path to guide La Befana and Livia to safety. Looking at these magical creatures, Livia was super amazed. Thank you, she whispered to Nerina, who swam gracefully beside her. You have a kind heart, little one, Nerina said with a gentle smile. That is, in its own, a kind of magic. The sea creatures worked together, hiding Livia from Magnus's searching eyes. the mighty kraken spread its giant tentacles, casting a shadow over the waters to keep them hidden. The jellyfish twinkled like a tiny lantern, lighting up hidden paths through the sea. The dolphins, swift and strong, carried Livia and La Befana far away, bringing them to a secret place deep inside the magical forest. A forest that was full of wonder and enchantment. The trees whispered to each other in rustling voices, their branches weaving together like hands clasped in friendship to create a safe shelter. Softly glowing flowers lined the path, and streams hummed sweet, gentle songs. La Befana moved quickly, tracing a circle on the ground and marking it with glowing symbols filled with ancient magic. A protective spell shimmered around them, keeping them safe for now. But Magnus was powerful and would not give up. He called upon fierce storms that roared through the land. His dark magic clawed at the protective spell, trying to break through. Then, one by one, his wicked followers found the hidden sanctuary. The earth shuddered beneath their feet, and then Magnus himself appeared. His long, tattered cloak swirled like a shadowing mist, and his staff crackled with dark energy. The air grew cold. The battle was about to begin. The wizard appeared in swirling cloud of dark smoke, his eyes glowing with wickedness. "Give me the child," he demanded, his voice booming like a thunderstorm. Livia clutched La Befana's cloak, her hands shaking, but she stood tall and refused to hide. "You won't take me," she said, her voice strong even though her heart was pounding. La Befana stepped forward, her staff glowing with soft, otherworldly light. "You have no power here, Magnus," she said firmly. "Your darkness cannot stand against courage and kindness." Magnus's lips curled into a sneer. Hand her over, old woman," he hissed, his voice as cold as ice. "Her magic will belong only to me." But La Befana did not flinch. "You don't understand the strength of those who protect the innocent," she said, her eyes fierce with determination. Magnus threw back his head and laughed, a sharp, cruel sound like breaking glass. He lifted his staff, and a swirling storm of dark magic burst into the air. But La Befana was ready. From her cloak, she pulled out an ancient staff wrapped in silver vines, its tip glowing with bright magical light. She scattered enchanted herbs into the wind and began to chant in language older than the stars. Their magic clashed, lighting up the night sky like a storm of fire and lightning. Waves of energy rippled through the air. Then, Nerina and her sea creatures joined the fight. The mighty kraken lashed out with its giant tentacles, tossing Magnus's minions aside. The glowing jellyfish flashed so brightly that the enemies were blinded. Even the enchanted forest rose to help. Roots twisted around Magnus's feet, and trees' branches grabbed at his cloak, trying to pull him down. The battle was fierce. La Befana's brilliant light against Magnus's swirling shadow. Magnus's dark magic slithered like snake, striking at La Befana again and again. The weight of his power grew stronger, pushing her back. Her glowing light flickered, and she fell to one knee, breathing heavily. Magnus grinned, raising his arms as he began to chant an even more powerful spell. The air crackled and shook. Above him, a spinning vortex of shadows formed, growing bigger and darker. Livia watched in fear, her heart pounding. Then she remembered Nerina's words. "Your bravery will be your shield." She took a deep breath, grabbed a small stone from the ground, and with all her might, threw it straight at Magnus. The stone struck his temple. His eyes widened in shock. His spell wavered. The swirling darkness above him flickered and began to break apart. La Befana saw her chance. She stood tall, her staff shining brighter than ever before. A dazzling light burst from its tip, filling the entire grove. The light rushed forward, swallowing Magnus completely. He screamed in rage as the brightness wrapped around him, pushing out every last trace of his darkness. Then, with a final howl, he was gone, vanished forever. The night fell silent. The battle was won. Livia's parents walked along the winding river, their hearts heavy and tired. The night had fallen, and they stopped in a little village where golden firelight flickered in the dark. Villagers had gathered around the great fire, their voices murmuring like the rustling trees. Stories of the lost child had reached there. An old man, wrapped in a cloak that smelt of earth and time, noticed their sorrow. His wise eyes twinkled like stars as he spoke. "You seek your child?" he said softly. Livia's parents glanced at each other, unsure but desperate for comfort. They nodded. Befana is a guardian to lost souls, leaving gifts of warmth and kindness. She appears when a child is lost or in need. I believe your child is safe with her. Livia's mother clutched her husband's hand. "Do you think she's real?" she whispered. The old man smiled, his wrinkles deep like lines of an ancient map. "The world is full of mysteries," he said, "and hope often shines when we least expect it." The fire crackled as if it too whispered secrets, and in that moment a spark of hope lit inside their hearts. With renewed strength, they set off again, through rolling hills and whispering forests, following the faint words of kind strangers who seemed to know of Befana's home. The air grew thick with magic, and stars above shimmering bright as if guiding their way. And then, at last, they saw her, a small cottage by the shore, a warm golden glow spilling from its windows. And standing in the doorway, safe, smiling, wrapped in Befana's gentle care, was their daughter. Hope had carried them through the darkness, and now, at last, their family was whole again. Tears and laughter filled the air as Livia ran into her parents' arms. They held her so tight, never wanting to let her go again. "Mama, Papa," Livia whispered, her eyes sparkling. "A sea fairy saved me." Her parents listened in awe, and though most would think such a tale is impossible, they did not doubt her once. For this place, with its glowing lanterns and whispering waves, felt like it was touched by magic. Overcome with gratitude, they offered Befana all they had, but she only smiled, her eyes twinkling like the night sky. "No gift is needed," she said gently. "Only a promise. Love your child always and never stop believing in the kindness of the world." As they left, Livia turned for one last look at the sea. For just a moment, she thought she saw a shimmer of silver beneath the waves, like a tail flickering before vanishing into the deep. Years passed, but Livia never forgot Nerina, the sea fairy, or Befana, the kind guardian. She told her tale to all those who would listen, of how magic had saved her when she was lost, and how hope had found her in the most unexpected way. And even now, if you listen closely near the river's edge, some say you might see a soft glow beneath the water, or catch a glimpse of an old woman watching over lost souls, making sure no one is ever truly alone. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the story. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And don't forget to hit the notification button so you're notified every time I upload a video. Till next time, have a great night.